So I'm here today with Dr. Malcom Kendrick, who has joined us to be one of our guest speakers at the Barbara O'Neill event in Cheshire. How do you feel it went, Malcolm?
Well, I think the conference has been very good. It seems like a really nice place. Everybody who's been has been very complimentary.
Yeah.
The staff have been helpful. I think it's worked very well, and of course the people seem to enjoy the lectures that I gave, which is always nice.
They did, and I'm going to say I was surprised. I'm not surprised because I knew you were good. I'm surprised that they enjoyed such a high-level technical presentation, but it helped them see the kind of high-level thoughts that are going on behind the scenes to prove or disprove certain things. It's quite a technical presentation, but they got it. Some people, it might have been a bit above their head, but the overriding feeling was you were right about all of these things, and it was actually very, very important information. They were very happy with your lectures, actually. I got lots of great feedback, and I think you've had some direct feedback from them.
Yes, no, I think one or two people, some people have said, I took notes, I'm going to go away, I'm going to read about it. It's always a difficult balance because you're talking about difficult areas, as H.L. Mencken, who you may or may not have heard of, an American humorist, once said, for every complicated problem, there's a solution that's simple, easy to understand, and wrong. And I think people, I do find that people like the fact that they are being stretched a bit, that they may not understand everything, but if they're getting the general idea, and then they're thinking, well, actually, this sounds like proper stuff. You can simplify it quite a lot, but I think you can go too far. It's a very difficult balance, and I think by the sound of things, I'm getting it about right.
I think so. Because what it does, I think it would inspire some of them to say, I thought I was on the ball with this health stuff. I think I could dig a bit deeper or go a bit deeper. And I think I've got more capacity than where I've found myself. And I'd like to go from O grade to higher grade in this stuff and beyond. So yeah, I think that's a fair observation. I think it stretched them to about where they were comfortable being stretched to. And I think it motivated them to dig a bit deeper. So we're very pleased with it. We've got Crieff coming up this year with Barbara coming back, Crieff Hydro in Scotland and Perth. That's the 22nd to the 24th of September. It's a full 3-day event, immersive event. The same 500 people will pretty much be there for the 3 days. There is an argument for day tickets coming in. It's quite interesting when you bring in new people into an event. We've had new people today. We actually split Malcolm's lectures over the 2 days that straddled the new customers coming in because we wanted them to see you. And those who didn't see you today will have saw you yesterday, but they'll see you in the recorded versions. So they won't miss it. But because it's been very good, we would like to chat with you about potentially coming to Crieff as a guest speaker again, and we could look at what we do there. We'll get some feedback today, and we'll look at if you were interested in that. It's a good crowd, eh?
No, absolutely. They very nice people, and I think the best thing for me is that there's a keenness to learn, there's a keenness to find out. As I said, of course, I know I'm right about everything, but now you can go off and discover that I was right about everything, rather than just taking my word for it. No, not trying to be too humorous, but I think the most important thing in this area is people find stuff out for themselves, that you're stimulating them to think, I'd love to find out more about this, because that's really what you're trying to achieve. You can't make people believe something. You can't decide for them. But you can hopefully point them in the right directions, and they can go off in different directions. That's fantastic. But the most important thing here, I think, the word woke has a great negative connotations, but we have a very awake audience here of people who are fascinated by the whole area, and that's lovely to find. Really lovely to find that audience of people who are just open to new ideas and are excited by them.
Yeah, we're very impressed with the crowds. It's good for us because we run an organic food and essentials business, but we're also the distributor of Barbara Neal books in the UK. So that attracts in a kind of audience via Barbara who are also interested in organic food, because you can't really get the health benefits that Barbara talks about without good food being a part of it, but also the other things like the organic hexane-free castor oil that Barbara talks about. We sell loads of that.
Yeah.
The compress packs that people can put it on with, around their knees, around the liver, breast, necks, heads. These are all little tools of the trade. You need the tools to do the job.
Yes. Yeah.
And food's one of the tools to do the job. Garbage in, garbage out. I mean, how much does food? I mean, we talked about this, the whole cholesterol, meat bad type scenario, and I think you put that to bed, didn't you, with some of the stats?
Well, I hope I did. I mean, it's amazing how resilient this idea is. You can beat it to death with a club, and it just comes back to life, and it's amazing. And I think there's an awful lot around that of the advertising that goes on, and this is a food stuff you can take that lowers your blood cholesterol, and it's relentless, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So going against this sort of avalanche of tidal wave, whatever word, against it is tough, because there is an element, and the medical profession itself are extremely resistant to the idea that food has any part to do with health, which is obviously completely ridiculous. You are what you eat, as you say, and I think I hate to say that people have been captured by the big industry here, and they're just trying to sell you the cheapest stuff they can make, and proper food and proper fats and proper meat and proper stuff that's grown, takes time to grow, and is good food, is difficult to make such a profit on, because you've got to sell it at a higher price, and people have become very used to buying cheap.
Quite tactical though, isn't it? It's kind of almost subsidised cheap food to make you be unwell, almost to an extent, if you wanted to take that kind of rabbit hole thing. I mean, there's no positive benefits. They could box a bit more cleverly with their technology, their data processing to not need stuff that needs such a long shelf life.
Yes.
With so many preservatives. They could get better at shorter shelf life stuff, but they don't. So do they want the preservatives in you or not? Which is the challenges you have to look at, because there doesn't seem any reason for. I mean, I work with bread. I work with bread, fresh bread from a baker. Do you like bread?
Yeah, unfortunately, like too much.
Well, we had some yesterday. Didn't we? I like bread. I like bread and butter. We had some. It was nice. The baker we get the bread from is an artisan baker in Perth. They're very, very good. And I watched this bread with no additives in it, no preservatives, very few ingredients, the way you would make like sourdough. On day one, fresh out the oven, still hot, beautiful, but kind of hard to cut. Yeah,
squidgy.
Better on day two.
Yeah.
But it just so happens with our model, we're buying it in the morning of day one, fresh out the ovens. We're packing it up that afternoon. It arrives in day two, perfect for slicing, freezing, putting in the freezer. But bread changes every day. I don't see that supermarket bread changing. I looked at something the other day. It was like burger buns. This was about 3 months ago. And the use-by date was August this year for a fresh bun. And that was in February, maybe even January. If I showed you what our rolls would be like rocks within 8 days. So I understand bread and understand what's going on in those supermarkets. And to give people proper bread, freshly baked bread, does take some time. But if I can do it as a 3-year-old business, why can't they?
Well, I think I try and stay away from people who are trying to, do nasty things to us from some evil intent. Well, the only evil intent is they're just saying, how do we make the most money? How can you make the most money?
Make it easier.
How can we put it on the shelves and leave it there for 4 days rather than have to, I notice what they do is they bring the newest bread to they move them around. So the newest bread goes to the back and the oldest bread's at the front.
Yeah.
And so as people buy it, it kind of pulls it towards the front. So, and that therefore it means they don't need to stack the shelves so often. It means that they make it last as long as possible. So you can't tell the difference between 2-day-old bread and 5-day-old bread. And it also means that people say, I could still eat this bread 10 days later and it was okay. So the motivation I would have here is they're just trying to shave the margins and script the markets all the time.
Profiteers.
Essentially, of course. Well, it's difficult to blame in the culture that we are in. It is like that, isn't it? And I can understand it.
And you'd agree that there's a kind of duty of care there, in the way that you do research. You'd think a big supermarket would look and say, okay, we get we're trying to save it, but is that the right product to preserve the shelf life, or is it bad for our customers? Do you think they look at it that way? Because they really should, from a duty of care point of view.
I don't think they do at all. I mean, I just don't think
preservatives have been proven to. Have you done any digging into that side?
Not specifically. I mean, I think that my general view is buy food that looks like food. I go to France quite a lot, and you buy a beautiful loaf of bread, or new loaves of bread. Really, you buy beautiful bread in the morning. If you try and eat it at 4:00 in the afternoon, it's like it's like concrete. Exactly. I mean, you have to eat it then and there, really. So their attitude would be, "What is this stuff?" And their attitude to a lot of things is like that. So you go to the butcher, and everything is just tasty. It is more expensive. I mean, it's 50. I don't know how much more expensive it is.
Kind of that. What price your health? I've used this kind of argument before. Like in the past, there was a whole generations of people who had to buy their freedom, from slavery, for want of a better way to put it. But they actually technically had to buy their freedom. But to buy your food freedom, they've either got you on price, or to buy your food freedom, you might have to pay more to get out. You're buying food freedom, you're buying choice, you're buying a healthier food. But that is a price worth paying.
Oh, I think so.
For you and your family, to protect them. Eat less. Fasting's becoming a big thing. I don't know if you get any views on fasting as a health tool.
I think that I tend to have a very simple process in my brain for what's healthy and what's not healthy. Is like, what did people used to do 10,000 years ago? And there would have been periods of fasting. So our bodies are probably designed to deal with that and to sort things out. That wasn't designed to eat at 8 o'clock in the morning, then have a snack at 11, then have another one at 12, and then whatever.
Exactly.
And I think that having periods of relative fasting, I think the evidence suggests it is good for us. It reduces our insulin sensitivity, it reduces the chance of diabetes, etc. So yes, the problem is, it comes from two directions. People are, and I include myself as people, naturally lazy. So whatever is easiest is what we tend to do, and choosing better food and making sure that you buy it that morning and then you've got to cook it in the afternoon is more hassle. And so you've got the hassle factor.
Yeah.
Now, if you enjoy cooking, and I actually do enjoy cooking, and you enjoy buying stuff, you will buy it that day to cook it that day. But sometimes you say, what am I going to buy for the whole week? And you don't really want to have to say, I'll have to go back in 2 days' time or 3 days' time. So to an extent, the supermarkets are pandering to that. But yes, your culture in France, not everywhere it is changed there, but in the traditional places is very much you buy your food in the morning and it's finished in the evening, and the next day you buy your food for the next day. That's not part of our culture, really. And maybe it should be. I mean, you're Scottish, I'm Scottish. I used to joke that, in Scotland, food is a refueling exercise. It's just you stuff it in your gob and then you go out. Yeah. It's not the evening. It's not what you do in the evening. You don't sit around eating. Eating's a sort of
the way they might do in France.
Yeah.
Or Spain. Yeah.
Well, you sit around in the evening, you have a glass of wine, you're chatting. It's a social occasion, which I think there was a time when my hypothesis was the French had a very low rate of heart disease because when they ate, they were relaxed and they were digesting their food properly and their sugars didn't go up and I still think that is important. And when they found that red wine reduce the risk of heart disease, which it doesn't specifically, but red wine tends to be taken with a meal. So it's part of the whole relaxed process. Whereas a whiskey, for instance, tended to be, 11 o'clock at night before the pub closes. So you could drink the same amount, but it would have a very different effect, not because alcohol was different, but because of the way that you consumed it. So I think it's also very important to eat in a social environment around the table if you can. So the food itself is obviously important. The process of eating and how you decide to eat and who's with you and whether you're chatting, I think carries a distinct importance as well.
And as you say about that laziness factor, the cooking food, the hassle involved in making sure you've got all the ingredients, the planning, the setting aside of the time, the getting it right.
Yes.
But that's what we used to do.
Well, we had to do it. There's no other way of doing it. I mean, it's a friend of mine worked, this is years ago, he was working in the pot noodle factory in, I think it was Nottingham. And he told me how many pot noodles were eaten every day in Britain. And the figure is something like 300,000 a day.
Unbelievable.
And some people eat nothing but pot noodles. And you think, I know it's easy, guys. And it has a kind of taste of some sort. But
blind faith, no research.
It's just what?
Not good for you.
No. And then, of course, ironically, I mean, my area, specific area, they decided saturated fats were bad for you for reasons. Anyway, we know what the reasons were. And so they said, well, you can't fry chips in saturated fat like tallow, beef tallow. So you've got to use polyunsaturated fats to fry your chips, which they did. And then they found, of course, that when you fry polyunsaturated fats, they turn into trans fats. It's a chemical reaction. And trans fats are uniquely unhealthy for you. So as with so many things in this area, they tried to make things healthier and made things unhealthier because they got it completely wrong. So the ideas are just stupid and damaging.
They're invested, but they've set up the new product range.
Yeah.
They've committed to it. They're not going to say, "Oh, we got it wrong."
Yeah.
Let's unwind it. They just keep going.
Well, they changed it because it used to be possible to buy margarine. You can't buy margarine anymore. It used to exist. I think I've seen it recently, but you won't notice it. They call it low-fat spreads because someone said to them, margarine, trans fats, really unhealthy, killing people. Instead of going, oh, we'll have to get rid of them, they do a different process. I'm not quite sure what it is. And now they call it low-fat fat. So it's basically you can spread low-fat fat onto your bread rather than butter. And this is apparently healthy. It is almost like, do you think we're all stupid? Well, the answer, sadly, is yes, they do think we're all stupid.
Yeah, they're quite clever. They understand what they can do and what they can't do and how much people will accept without questioning pretty much anything. But that seems to be changing a bit. But with regards, one of the things that I like most about your speech today, and I think yesterday's speech actually, it was quite hard-hitting, was the 3 very high-up people within medical journals, I believe it is.
That's right, yeah.
Who made some quite powerful statements about the trustworthiness of the various research that had been done in research papers and things that were changing public health policy as a result. And these guys at the top level were challenging that. Do you want to touch on that a bit for people who missed it? Because I think for a lot of people it's quite comforting to hear it from people at that level because we're on the right track here. Yeah.
Well, it's the journals, the editors are now all retired. It's amazing what people feel they can say when they're retired. Marcia Angel, she ran the New England Journal, editor of the New England Journal of Medicine, which is considered the highest impact factor medical journal in the world. In other words, it's the one which, if you get a paper in it, it gathers the most, you get the most press releases. It has the greatest impact. It's quoted the most in other people's papers. So it's like the the high pinnacle.
And any doctor, or is it anybody within the health industry, or is it just doctors? Do you need a certain level of qualification to submit a paper for potential publication?
Well, anyone can submit. It tends to be medics, generally, not always. It could be a physiotherapist or something. It tends to be that they publish only big papers on big new research, and the only people who can do big new research and afford it are the pharmaceutical companies. They charge you to publish in it. They then get copyright, and then they charge for the advertising.
Pay to play.
Pay to play,
To get
essentially.
paper published,
Yeah.
which is a paper that you've written that could be
Yeah.
presenting an angle that you're interested in.
Well, of course it is, and I know people who are ghost authors. Although the names of the professor so and so, professor so and so, professor so and so were on it, they've rarely had anything to do with the writing of the paper. Mm-hmm. It will generally be written by ghost writers who are paid by the pharmaceutical industry to do it. Mm-hmm. It will then be presented to them, who then stick their name on it and go, yes, this seems fine and pleasant and whatever. This happens. This is a constant thing that happens. I know because, anyway, I know a lot about this area. And Marcia Angel wrote, so I no longer trust the health experts. I no longer trust the research. In fact, basically, I can't trust anything that gets published anymore. Now, she was editing the journal. Richard Horton, who edits I think he still is the editor of The Lancet, basically has written that he reckons at least 50% of the research published is false. And probably more than that. He says research has taken a turn towards the darkness.
Yeah, that was the one.
Yeah. Richard Smith, who was the editor of the BMJ, has been critical of medical research for years. Basically, he says, that everybody knows this. Everybody in this top-led world knows what's going on. They know there's bias, there's corruption, there's falsified research going on, there's non-reproducibility. And he's written about this for many years, but he's basically said, I've sort of given up bothering because I can't do anything about it. Well, if he can't, who can? And it's a terrible thing. Another very, very, very major paper was written by John Ioannidis, why most published research findings are false. And he analysed this statistics stuff that I'm not going to go into, it's very complicated, but essentially he said most research papers are just a confirmation of the existing bias. Because if you try and publish something that goes against it, I have published some anti-cholesterol papers but mostly they get rejected. Just reject. They say, well, we don't believe this is an article that would be of the interest to our readers at this time. They give you no explanation other than basically piss off, and that's it. And I showed you that Swedish researcher who's researching into a specific area called the glycocalyx, fantastically important. Was basically told by the editor of the journal in Sweden, we ain't publishing you anymore because we need the money from the pharmaceutical industry. So it is, I'm afraid to say, and I hate saying this, it's a corrupted area.
Yeah.
I read research papers with a different hat than maybe other people. I read them from what's wrong with this paper. What research fiddling have they done? How did they do it? How have they managed to present this? I was at a talk and someone said that in Harvard, they created a little device, a very clever little device that flicked a coin. And it flicked it into a cup. And the cup was only about the same size as the coin, so it was very precisely done. And you put it in at heads and it clicked it, and it spanned 30 times and came up heads every time. I said, isn't that clever? I said, well, the analogy being, if you know what you're doing with statistics and you know the clinical trial and you've already looked at your drug very carefully, you know what's going to come up.
Yeah.
So you set the trial up in reverse, if you like. You know it's going to show certain things. So when they have this probability figure of it's a 1 in 20 risk, they know before they do the trial what they're going to show.
Yeah.
And they've set it up with a select group of patients with select issues wrong with them.
Crazy.
Da-da-di-da-di-da. Oh, look, it's statistically significant. You go, you have just designed it to do that. And they're going to get the result they want. They can't afford not to get the result they want. They're spending hundreds of millions on the blooming drugs. Mm-hmm. Occasionally, they backfire miserably. And I mentioned drugs where it went all horribly wrong, but they were so certain they were going to show benefit. They didn't even bother with this. Let's just make sure we do show benefit.
Right.
So, I have said to people, this is like the Matrix. It's the blue pill or the red pill. And you take the blue pill and you've got this lovely world and you're living in it and everything seems fine. And that's kind of how most doctors are about how the research world is, how most people, how the patients are, how the public is, because they don't want to turn around going, you can't believe any of this stuff. It's just nonsense. That's a very uncomfortable place to be. This is cognitive dissonance plus, plus, plus.
Yeah.
So, but you take the red pill and you realize we're all living in machines covered in slime and being controlled by robots. It's not quite like that, but it is this sense of, I really don't want to know this. And I can tell if I speak to people down the pub, it's like, no. And they look and they suddenly see you in a different light. You're a conspiracy theorist, aren't you? I go, well, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm a conspiracy factist because I can show you exactly how they've done this. I can show you who did it. I can show you when they did it. I can show you the pathway between this and that. They don't want to know because you've taken people too far. You've taken them to a position where they don't want to be. And I don't know how you get people to sort of take that step into the void of, actually, you know, life expectancy in the United Kingdom is now falling. Heart disease rates are rising, and we have all these new drugs that are supposedly wonder drugs for heart disease. They say, well, if all these wonder drugs were actually working, why do you think the rate of heart disease deaths is going up? Well, because these drugs don't work. They do not work.
And is it difficult? Like, how does it work in the grand scheme of things for, I suppose it's just, if people were relaying your information that they learned today to a family friend, it's quite a challenge, isn't it? Because they've got their doctor saying one thing, and then someone's went to a 2-day event, listened to someone, and then they're saying, I think you should do this. It's challenging, isn't it? And you can't get them back. You know, if that person was sitting there, they would consume the information differently. Which is why it's hard to get people off these statins and things, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's quite easy just to say, oh, well, what does he know? My doctor tells me, and the papers tell me, and the research apparently tells me. So facts, if you like. I mean, I've spoken to doctors, I've given presentations to doctors. But, of course, the problem is that those that come to places like this are already most of the way there, if you like. What you're trying to get is people who are nowhere there. So what you tend to find is people say, you'll get people who've said had horrible adverse effects from a statin who've decided to stop it, who may want to therefore hear, you're quite right, you don't need to take it. And that reassures them. But for the average person is saying, well, I take my statin, I'm fine. I don't want to hear anything more about it. Not from you, you know, because what the hell was he? He's a GP. He's a GP. Well, a cardiologist say you should do it, you know. So you are up a huge challenge. I mean, I've written books about it. You can go and read the book. You know, how do you get things changed? And I have said that the world changes one conversation at a time. You're not going to change the whole world right now, here and then. So you have to start with some people. Hopefully they go out. The problem is they won't remember in any detail to make the arguments that I can make. You know, if their doctor started speaking to me and saying that's rubbish, I go, right, okay, come on then, have a go, because you're going to lose. But I'm not there, am I? And they will just back off. People don't want confrontation. People don't want to confront their GP.
No, they don't.
People don't want to be seen as troublemakers. People don't, et cetera.
It's like when babies are born, the midwives are very pro-vaccine and, you know, hungry for more vaccinated kids, and they won't really lay off. A mother who says, I prefer not to. They get hounded. I mean, it's a completely different approach for that.
Yes.
And if you say, well, I've read up this and I've read that, it's almost like, how could you do that to your baby and not vaccinate them? You know, and the pressure is huge, particularly in that one area of medicine. But I think statins is just as big from what I'm gathering. I mean, that calculator thing that you did looks like everybody's going to fall into that category.
Well, everybody will fall into it.
So they're going to get offered it.
Yes.
That's your statin nation, your book, isn't it?
Well, it's not, it's and the clock thick. I know and on my blog, Dr. Malcom, Kendrick.org is also, I mean, I cover all sorts of this stuff, which is, it is tricky because it's like offered with threats, if you like. Well, if you don't take it, you'll die. I mean, I've heard that said to people. It's like, well, that's kind of not really an offer, is it? But that's
enough. That's a sale.
Yes.
They're on it.
Yeah.
And they're on it for life,
And if you stop taking it, you'll die. I mean, as a court case, the Mail on Sunday did articles about myself and Zoe Harcum and Asim Malhotra, saying that because we were criticising statins and basically saying they've got less benefits than they're presented with and more adverse effects than they're generally told about, that we're causing thousands of people hundreds of thousands of people to stop taking statins, and thousands have died. Died basically accused of killing thousands of people. Mm-hmm. So we said, stuff you, we're taking you to court, which we did, and we won. Because actually, once you strip away these people are idiots argument and we're very clever and we're professors argument, there's nothing left other than do as I say. So, I mean, that comes out in court, because in court they can actually hear the evidence. And the good thing about the legal system is they don't care if you're Professor so-and-so or Professor so-and-so. They've seen a lot of Professor so-and-sos who've, pompous people who then they realise are just underneath it. Mm-hmm. They don't carry any particular authority beyond I'm a professor, which I call eminence-based medicine. Mm-hmm. In other words, do you know who I am medicine? And that's really all they got to stand on, because if you start arguing with them, it all falls to pieces. Yeah.
Well, listen, I'm not going to take up much more of your time, but it's been great. We could chat for hours. And I hope at some point we do get a chance to chat a lot more about these things.
Yeah.
I'd like to maybe do a longer interview with you and communicate more. And we'll be letting people who have bought the virtual tickets see this, and it's going to result in more people being interested in your books to delve a bit deeper. And maybe past that book and the video, which allows them to transport themselves back to the impact that we had on that, or you had on that audience in there, who are coming out and shaking your hands and saying that was useful for them. But they've got family members. So now we've got a way to take that presentation where they can sit them down with a loved one and say, watch this, have a read of that book, have a think. Because you have to go into it with confidence that you're not going to die when the doctor has already positioned that, sledgehammer over you.
Yes.
They're saying, this is what's going to happen. It's a man in a white coat who you've trusted for 30 years. He's never done you any harm.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, he has a lot of influence over that person. And Jeannie, the wee conspiracy theorist daughter who's just back from an event, is looked on in a different light, but she's trying to help.
Yes.
So again, it's open mind time for these people and a chance for them to look and to think. But I think it's very useful for people to not be trapped where they are, and to go in with confidence to maybe making an informed choice for themselves. And I think that your presentations give people that confidence. And I'd like to thank you again for that and for your time at this event. It's been great to meet with you in person, and you're doing a great job. So we hope that people will follow you. And thank you again, Malcom, for your time.
Thanks, Steve. I've enjoyed it very much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Happy?